I sat in my office on the 34th floor of Novacore Tower, the glass walls framing a perfect view of Seattle's waterfront just as the sun broke through the fog. Below, the staff at Halverson Dynamics were filing into their high-tech headquarters, unaware that the software routing their security badges, emails, and project data all flowed through a platform built by the person they once humiliated. 5 years ago, in that very building, I was 25 years old and the youngest systems engineer in Halverson's research division. "This is absurd," Calvin Halverson scoffed, reclining in his carbon fiber executive chair while reviewing my pitch deck. "You're telling me this algorithm, written by someone fresh out of grad school, can cut our backend processing time in half?" I stood tall even as my hands trembled. "Yes, sir. The pilot reduced workflow redundancies by 81%. He didn't even let me finish. "Kendra, I don't need TED Talk ideas. I need professionals who understand infrastructure at scale." My manager, Alex Monroe, chimed in nervously. "She's been outperforming our senior architects in test simulations. You thought wrong," Halverson snapped, his voice sharp and final. "This company was built on precision, not dorm room theories. Ms. Reyes," he never bothered to learn my last name, "focus on your assigned duties, or there won't be any to return to." That day, I walked out humiliated, my laptop clutched like a lifeline. But the real blow came 2 weeks later. It was past 10 p.m. when a shared drive link blinked onto my screen. Someone had forgotten to revoke my executive access. Inside a folder labeled Innovation Pipeline, I found my entire proposal, with Alex Monroe's name on it. They had stolen it. But they misunderstood the architecture. What they deployed was a time bomb. I could have gone to HR or filed an ethics complaint. But I did something better. I left Halverson Dynamics the next morning and spent the next 3 years perfecting my platform. Investors laughed at first, until they didn't. Novacore Labs was born. We licensed the platform back to the industry, including Halverson. So now, every keystroke they make goes through me. The software they dismissed now runs their foundation. And I never had to raise my voice. Only my standards. My resignation letter was short and respectful. I cited personal reasons, gave 2 weeks' notice, and left Halverson Dynamics with nothing but my code and the fire to prove every last one of them wrong. They never thought to ask what I'd patented, never imagined that the junior engineer they brushed off had already filed for intellectual property protection under her own name. The first 6 months were brutal. I moved into a cramped studio off Pike Street, living on instant noodles and caffeine, coding for 18-hour stretches. But NeuronX evolved. Fast. What started as a streamlined process optimizer transformed into an intelligent, adaptive enterprise system, a neural platform for business ecosystem. Not just software. A digital nervous system for corporations. Then came the pitch that changed everything. At a private showcase for emerging tech, I met Sarah Zhang, a venture capitalist with a reputation for spotting breakthrough innovation before anyone else. She didn't just skim my demo, she dove into it. "Walk me through the neural interface again," she said, eyes sharp. "How does it integrate with legacy platforms in real time?" We spoke for hours. Data architecture, scaling protocols, deployment strategies. When we wrapped, she leaned back and grinned. "This is impressive. Why hasn't anyone launched something like this before?" I didn't hesitate. They tried. Halverson Dynamics launched a mimic last year. It failed. She raised a brow. "Wait, that was you?" "No," I said. "That was their attempt to copy me without understanding how NeuronX really worked." She laughed, a knowing laugh. "That fiasco tanked their entire R&D department. Do you realize how many companies are now looking for exactly what you've built?" I did. I was counting on it. $5 million for 20% equity, she offered, and introductions to my entire tech portfolio. A week later, Novacore Labs was born. With Sarah's backing, we moved fast. Her connections opened doors I never thought I'd walk through. Within 3 months, we signed our first major client, a regional bank desperate to modernize. Within 6, we had a waiting list of Fortune 100s. NeuronX worked flawlessly. I stayed out of the spotlight, used only my middle name and mother's maiden name in public filings. As far as the world knew, Neuron X came from Elizabeth Morgan. Halverson never connected the dots. And I never had to expose them. Their loss became my legacy. Their failed attempt to reverse engineer my platform had cost Halverson Dynamics millions. The implementation collapsed, customers fled, and their stock began a steady freefall. Meanwhile, Neuron X became the benchmark. Then the email arrived. Subject: Request for consultation. Dear Miss Morgan, I represent Halverson Dynamics, a Fortune 500 company seeking to modernize our enterprise systems. We've followed Nova Core Lab's success with great interest and would like to discuss potential collaboration opportunities. Sincerely, Calvin Halverson, CEO. I read it 3 times, slowly, savoring every carefully worded plea. They weren't just reaching out, they were begging. Sarah spotted it first in our CRM system. She called me instantly. Tell me you're going to meet with them, she said, barely hiding her excitement. Oh, I will, I replied, staring out at the Halverson Tower from my penthouse office. But not right away. You're ruthless, she laughed. I adore it. I let them stew for 2 weeks. Their stock dropped another 12%. Analysts started speculating on executive shakeups. Calvin gave vague interviews about strategic transitions. It was delicious. Finally, I replied, a short polite note agreeing to a meeting, on my terms. They would come to me. The morning of the meeting, I hit the gym in my building, burning off anticipation. 3 years ago, I stood in Calvin Halverson's office, being told my ideas were naive. Today, he was coming to me. My assistant's voice broke through my thoughts. Miss Morgan, Mr. Halverson and his team have arrived. I slipped into a navy designer suit, the price tag higher than my entire annual salary at Halverson back then, and walked calmly to the glass conference room. Let the games begin. He entered first, still tall, still impeccably dressed, still carrying that air of executive infallibility. But now, his confidence was cracked. I saw it in his eyes. Miss Morgan, he said, extending his hand, thank you for making time. Behind him, Alex Monroe, and 2 other faces I knew all too well. None of them flinched, not one hint of recognition. Funny what 3 years, a new name, and undeniable success can do to your image. Please, I said, gesturing to the long table. I took my time settling in at the head. Let them wait. Let them wonder. Let's be direct, Halverson said, folding his hands. We need your help. Halverson Dynamics is looking to modernize our enterprise systems. Neuron X's track record speaks for itself. I raised an eyebrow. Does it? Tell me, Mr. Halverson, what exactly do you know about our system? He launched into a memorized monologue, carefully laced with buzzwords. Machine learning, real-time optimization, behavioral data loops, terms he didn't truly understand, no matter how smoothly he said them. I watched Alex Monroe nodding along, no doubt the one who coached him. Impressive research, I said lightly when he finished. But I noticed you haven't mentioned your company's last attempt at transformation. The room chilled instantly. Calvin's jaw tightened. That was an unfortunate misstep. We received some bad guidance. Alex suddenly found his tablet screen deeply fascinating. Bad guidance? I swiped through my iPad, bringing up a file. You mean the rollout 2 years ago? The one that hemorrhaged $30 million and imploded within a month? Alex looked up. How did you? Enough, Calvin said sharply. We've learned, he added more smoothly. That's why we're here now. We want the best. And Neuron X is the best. I walked slowly toward the window, the skyline stretching below. The Halverson Dynamics building loomed in the distance, a relic of outdated power. Tell me, I said without turning, what happened to the developer who originally created that platform? The one whose work you tried to claim as your own? Silence. I don't know what you're referring to, Calvin replied, but the edge in his voice betrayed him. I turned around and locked eyes with him. No, let me refresh your memory. You developer, female. Propose a self-learning system you dismissed as naive. You remember now? Alex's face lost all color. Calvin narrowed his eyes, staring hard. How do you? I smiled, returned to my seat, and tapped a button on my desk. The wall screen lit up. My original Neuron X proposal filled the screen. My diagrams, my code, my name at the top, Kendra Reyes. Hello again, Mr. Halverson. Remember me? The worthless junior developer? Chaos. Alex dropped his tablet. Calvin stood abruptly, face red with disbelief. This is impossible, he sputtered. I folded my hands calmly. No, Calvin, this is justice. You can't be Elizabeth Morgan. That's my middle name and my mother's maiden name, I replied calmly. But you knew me as Kendra Reyes, the developer whose ideas you stole, the one you told to stick to her job and stop pretending to be an entrepreneur. We'll sue, Calvin Halverson snapped, but the tremble in his voice betrayed him. That platform was developed while you worked for us. No, I cut him off. Neuron X was patented before I ever stepped into that meeting with you. You can check the filings. I leaned forward with a faint smile. Oh wait, you can't. Your systems are still too outdated to access archives that far back. I stood and smoothed my skirt. But that's not why you're here, is it? You're here because you need Neuron X. Your competitors have already adopted it. Your clients are jumping ship, and every day you delay, your market share bleeds out. Name your price, he muttered through clenched teeth. Price? I laughed quietly. Mr. Halverson, I think you misunderstand. I'm not selling to you, I'm buying you. I slid the document folder across the table. NovaCore Labs is launching a hostile takeover of Halverson Dynamics. We already have the support of 42% of your shareholders. With your current stock drop, we'll secure the rest within the quarter. Calvin's hands trembled as he scanned the paperwork. The color drained from his face. This is revenge. No, I said coolly. This is business. Your company is undervalued, has existing infrastructure and a recognizable name. With the right technology, it could thrive again. That's what we do. We acquire and rebuild. I paused. That the acquisition is also poetic justice? Just a perk. The board will never approve this, he said, clinging to hope. They already did. I pressed a button. A new screen appeared, board votes, signatures, the motion passed. You were the last to know. Alex Munro sank into his chair. What happens to us? Death depends. I sat back down, eyes sharp. NovaCore keeps valuable employees, but we start with a performance review, especially regarding how senior staff treat junior innovators. Calvin looked crushed. You can't do this. I stood again. I already did. Security will escort you out. HR will be in touch. Oh, and Calvin? I smiled faintly. Your office has a lovely view. I think I'll keep it. After they left, my phone buzzed. Sarah's voice came through, breathless with excitement. How did it feel? I smiled. Better than I ever imagined. I am, I replied, watching through the floor-to-ceiling windows as Calvin Halverson and his team were escorted from the building. How's the stock responding? Up 12%, Sarah said. Wall Street loves the idea of NovaCore modernizing Halverson Dynamics. I smiled. Schedule the press conference for tomorrow morning. It's time for Elizabeth Morgan to step into the light. You're going public with everything? I turned from the glass. Not the whole story. This isn't about revenge, it's about innovation replacing obsolescence, about vision outlasting ignorance, about software once called worthless, becoming the foundation of the future. Exactly. The next day I stepped behind the podium with the Seattle skyline behind me, announcing NovaCore's acquisition of Halverson Dynamics. I wore the same navy blazer I had worn to that humiliating meeting 3 years earlier. No one else would recognize it, but I did. Reporters asked about my background, why I'd stayed anonymous so long. I gave them rehearsed answers. Focus on product, let results speak. They didn't need to hear about the sleepless nights, the ramen dinners, the nights I almost gave up after being told I wasn't enough. Success speaks louder anyway. Within a month, Halverson Dynamics was fully integrated into NovaCore. I kept my promise to evaluate fairly. Many stayed, some thrived. Alex Munro now manages internal audits, competent but uninspired. He never saw what Neuron X could be, only what it might cost. Calvin Halverson retired early. His corner office, it's now my secondary workspace. More symbolic than functional, a quiet reminder that no idea is worthless in the right hands. Sometimes, during quiet nights, I open my old pitch deck, the one he called naive. The lines of code, the original system diagrams. They remind me that success isn't about proving them wrong. It's about proving myself right. The Halverson building still stands, but now it bears the NovaCore Labs logo. Thousands of employees log in each morning, running their operations through a platform designed by a woman they once overlooked. And in the pocket of my old blazer, I keep a folded note, my resignation letter from 3 years ago. On the back, written in my shaky handwriting from that night, remember this moment, it's not the end. And it wasn't. It was the beginning. If you've stayed with me through this story, thank you. Not just for listening, but for seeing me. I used to believe that silence was the price of survival, that playing small would earn me a seat at someone else's table. But I learned the hard way. You can't grow in places that bury your light. They called me naive, arrogant, and unqualified. But what they didn't know was that every late night, every failure, and every dismissal was forging the version of me who would one day sit at the head of that table and own it. If you've ever been underestimated, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment. Tell me about the time they told you you weren't enough and what you did next, or what you will do next. Because this isn't just my story, it's yours too. And if you're standing in that quiet place between doubt and breakthrough, here's my advice. Don't wait for permission. Build, learn, file the patent. Launch the idea. Back yourself when no one else will. You are not too young, too late, too soft, too much. You're right on time. Support stories like mine by hitting that subscribe button, because the world needs more narratives where underestimated voices rise and win. Share this with someone who needs that final push to trust their own potential. Let them know they're not alone. And if you're still wondering if your work is worth it, if your idea matters, if you're ever going to get your moment, remember this. I didn't see me coming either. But I showed up anyway. And so can you.